Hi everybody, I've turned my mic back on. I would like to welcome you to this information session for the Advanced Care Paramedic Program at JIBC for the offering in 2018 in September, starting then for the New Westminster and Victoria campuses. I'm just going to do another check to make sure you can hear me. Oh, Amanda says that she can hear me, so that's great. All right, so, yep, good. People can hear me. That's fantastic. All right, I have with me, so my name is Stephen Mills, and I'm currently the program manager for the Advanced Care Paramedic Program, and also program manager for practice education for the Health Sciences Division. And I'm really loving this work in the Advanced Care Paramedic Program and really enjoying the work with practice education. There's a great overlap between the two. So I'm actually always really delighted to do information sessions and share what we're doing in the ACP program. So what I want you to know is I have Sue Nielsen with me. She's our program assistant, and so she's sitting across the table from me, so you can't see her because she's on the other side of my laptop. And she's there as my, my go-to person for any questions that I don't know the answer to, or she usually does, and so, or she can access it and find answers. So the format is I'll do a presentation to give you some basic information about the program, and that'll be pretty short. And so we'll do that presentation, and then what we'll do is open the floor up for questions. Now you can ask questions throughout the presentation. I'm happy with that too. But I usually find that if we just nip through the presentation, I might actually answer a bunch of your questions, and then we can get to ones that that the presentation might create, those kinds of questions. So either way, you can ask questions during, or we can save them for after. Sue will help me keep track of the chat where you're writing your questions in. So let's see, I've told you about myself. You now know that Sue is here. For those of you who have arrived a little later, I have not empowered your microphones, so we will use the chat. The other thing I'd like you to know is that it's being recorded, and I'm going to use this, once this session's done, I will post it in the next week or so on Facebook, so that people can have access to it there as well. All right, so I'll get started. Welcome again to this information session. Glad that you all are here. And that doesn't work. Okay, let's try this. There we go. So who are we looking for in the Advanced Care Paramedic Program nowadays? Well, what's really interesting about the program and the feedback from preceptors is that we're really, and DCHS actually, what we're really looking for are leaders, right? We're actually looking for paramedic leaders who can, in fact, not only manage a scene really well, but who actually are leaders in their community. They think critically, are reflective practitioners, can solve problems, they demonstrate empathy, and have great communication skills. And because of that, they provide the best possible patient care. See, and that's what's really pivotal here, is when you move from PCP to ACP, you get all the toys, you get all the fancy skills and the extra learning, which is really cool. But on top of that is that you take on a different role and a different way of thinking, and it's a paradigm shift, because you are in fact a leader. You lead that scene, you lead that call, and you're actually a leader in terms of education for your fellow paramedics. And you'll see this developed in the new Canadian paramedic profile, which is replacing the NOCP, and it is coming out in August of this year. That there's a change in roles for paramedics, and educator is one of them. So we'll get to that more in a bit. Let's see. So why? why become a paramedic, ACP paramedic? Why? I always use this picture as much as possible in either information sessions or presentations. This is actually a picture of my dad. This is at the Kelowna campus. That's my dad, and he's with a PCP student doing a high fidelity simulation. And my parents have always been really community-minded people, and when we first started high-fidelity simulations at the Kelowna campus in PCP, when I was the regional training coordinator there, my parents came out for each high-fidelity simulation day to actually play patients. And what's really cool about that is a couple of years after this picture was taken, my dad then had AAA. He had a tear in his aorta, and the crew that picked him up out of West Bank included some of our faculty, and they did an amazing job with him, took him to the hospital, got him into the hospital, into the ER, and just as the nurse was moving him into the OR, his aneurysm burst, and he was actually, because of the great work of the paramedics and the seriousness and urgency they showed, he actually lived, and so is doing very well right now. So I always love including this picture. And why is that important? Because for me, ACPs as leaders in the community really do make an enormous difference. And so, as you can tell, I'm biased because of that. And so this is what matters the most, I think, for ACPs, is that you can make an amazing positive difference. Because everything that you do as a leader, as a clinical leader, as an education leader, as an advanced care paramedic leader in your community, in your station, with other crews, everything you do matters. All right, now the other news. So why is that you should become an advanced care paramedic? Well, to be truthful, DCHS needs advanced care paramedics. They've gone through a period where they weren't hiring ACPs, and now if they could be hiring them by the bucketful, if they had the applicants, they would be hiring them. We know that our 1601 program, which is just ending now, they have room in the mentorship for all of those students. And they're going to be hiring hundreds of ACPs probably over the next 5 years. The messaging that has come out from Joe Acker, Mr. Joe Acker with BCHS, that you've probably seen on Facebook, is that we're in a massive deficit for ACP right now with BCEHS. And this is even right at this very moment, they have a need for 32 ACPs, and they can't fill those seats. So they are going to be hiring a lot of ACPs over the next several years, and probably will be doing they will be depairing the ACP system, moving ACPs into rural communities and smaller towns, so that those communities have the benefits of ACP leadership and ACP level of practice there. So it's an exciting time to be an ACP in British Columbia, and so I'm just thrilled about the movement towards ACPs and that marriage of ACPs and rural medicine. Okay, so the rest of this, whoops, my apologies. Here, so how do you become an ACP? Well, here's the nuts and bolts of it. This is how you apply to the program, and it's what we have on the website, which is where I took all this information, is quite straightforward. You basically prepare your prerequisites, and then there's on the right-hand side here, it shows you how to do it. You check the program application deadline dates, and the deadline date is the 14th of July. You submit the JIBC online application form, and that you'll find on the ACP page. And then you pay the $75 application fee. And then once you've paid that application fee, that sets you up so that you can then submit your JIBC general requirement documents by the end of the application deadline. And then the next stage is to submit your program-specific requirements. And those are listed below, which are completing the ACP program document submission form and submitting it with the supporting documents by the application deadline. So it's like a two-step process. And until that application fee is paid, we don't receive information from the registration office that you've applied. Once that $75 application fee has been paid, then all the application documents that they have get sent up to us. And in the program area, we start our work on reviewing those documents. We have a question about preceptors. So Amanda, I'm gonna answer that in a little bit. So hold on to that thought. It's a really important thought. When and where, as you know, it's going to be Victoria and New West in 2018. And what do you need? Okay, to be an ACP in this program, you actually need to have a really good sense of humor. Let's start there. You gotta be able to have fun. The students work hard, but have a lot of fun. You got to have some grit and determination. It's a long haul, but it's definitely worth it. Good study habits help, positive outlook, growth mindset. If you don't know anything about growth mindset, check out Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset. A good support network, definitely a financial plan. Humility really helps, and confidence. You also need textbooks and uniform, that's a given, and an Apple iPad tablet, and then the ability and means to travel for practice education. We're finding that in practice education that capacity is still low at the moment, and I expect this to go on for a while, and so all students have been required to travel. And the author's last name, Carol Dweck, is actually D-W-E-C-K. And let's see. So yes, traveling is pivotal. So you will need to save extra money for traveling. Here's how much the tuition is, and we'll talk about funding shortly. But on top of your tuition fees, there will also be, of course, all your textbooks, your uniform, the tablet. And so textbooks and uniform and tablet and all that stuff, figure you'll spend probably, what, Sue, another $5?
Include the tablet?
Yeah.
Textbooks are about $1,100, $1,200.
Textbooks are about $1,200, we figure.
Tablet and uniform.
And that's brand new, right? You can get a lot of textbooks used, or some textbooks used. So maybe about $2,000 to $3,000 for all of that stuff. Financial assistance. Okay, student aid BC may be available for you, and a bunch of our students do get student aid BC, current students. If you meet the requirements for the EMA Education Fund, please do apply for it. Every student in ACP so far that meets the eligibility requirements, and I think the eligibility requirements are that you have to be employed by DCHS, has received that funding. And so what we see are 99% of our students in ACP receive the funding that to cover their tuition. So if you don't apply for it, you can't get it. It's that sort of thing. So I would say every single one of you who applies to the program make sure that you apply for that funding. There are also other bursaries and awards that may be specific to you or your family or related to your background. And talk with Scott Ostertag, who's our student financial aid advisor, and you can connect with him through these numbers here. Talk with him and he can walk you through what might be available to you. All right, what's new in the program? Okay, new in the program, we've moved to an active learning model in the program, which is JIBC's standard model, active experiential learning, based on Kolb's experiential learning model, and moved away from lectures. And this has been a major improvement because the focus is not on content, because we expect students to come to class prepared. The focus is on integration of information and application. So we've decreased the student workload so students can come to class prepared. And in fact, right now we're actually removing even more non-vital content, quiz requirements, assignments that we are now seeing as non-vital, so that students can come to class better and better prepared. We've moved term 2 and 3 practical exams to after practice education so that your learning in the field can inform your examinations. And so our examinations for those 2 terms are higher fidelity, and they are not as linear as they used to be. And so there's a lot of gray in them. And the marking has room for that kind of gray and decision making and justification of the decisions you make. So we've had really good experience with those exams from the 1601 class. No high-stakes written exams. These all have been moved to unweighted quizzes for you to complete as learning tools. You're still required to complete them at a 75% level, but you can do them as many times as you want. We have full-time lead instructors for each didactic term at the New West campus who help support the leads at the regional campuses. And so we're finding that this person helps provide consistency and ongoing support for students and faculty, which has worked well. We've also introduced the new practice education leads. So this replaces the clinical liaison role, which we had about 8 or 9 clinical liaisons in the province. What we've done is have 2 practice education leads who are much more focused on, so they have a more focused mandate on how to support students during practice education. And we've been getting excellent feedback from both 1601 and 1701 students on the role of the practice education leads. So those are some of the changes that we've made in the program. So what's next? Well, apply, go through our selection process, which is made up of a knowledge-based exam and an interview. And the panel interview, is actually a more informal conversation approach and is focused on more the soft skills rather than clinical skills questions. And so when you apply to the program and we invite you to the interview, then we'll give you some more information about that. And then be prepared for a great ride, 20 months of transformative experiential learning. Then you go through EMLB for licensure with the copper exam, which is a written exam. And those quizzes that we've put online for you, the written exams that we moved online, they support your learning for that copper exam because the textbook that's used in those quizzes is one of the textbooks that's used for the development of the copper exam. And then, of course, with DCHS, there's mentorship and employment opportunities, but also there's employment in other provinces, and certainly there's work in industry. All right. We made it to the questions. Okay. I hope that that wasn't too tedious, and thank you for your attention. And so questions, and let me start with Amanda's questions about preceptors. And so So I'll try to be short on that. But basically, what we've been doing is working with DCHS to begin a change in the culture in ACP paramedics and ultimately preceptors. And so what we've done with that is one of the big steps we made is we actually have decided that precepting needs to move to a coaching model rather than an evaluating and gatekeeper model. Now, culture change takes time. So what we've done is we've started doing ACP crew visits, so going out into the field and visiting ACPs. We haven't made it to the Okanagan yet, but we've been in Victoria and about the Lower Mainland doing crew visits earlier this year. And getting that word out. We have the support of DCHS Learning, who oversees the preceptors in this role. We were also, we collaborated with BCEHS in writing the EOI that has gone out to hire new preceptors for PCP and ACP, so that we're again moving away from that strongly evaluative process. We're also going to be collaborating with BCHS in building the new preceptor workshop, and that preceptor workshop will be focusing on a lot of the really required soft skills, creating a safe environment for students, giving constructive feedback in a safe, empathetic, and constructive manner. And so we've been doing quite a bit of work in improving that culture, and certainly what I've noticed also with the the sort of ambassador type roles that many of our ACP faculty are taking out in the world and culture of ACP preceptors is really pushing that message through, that we're changing that process and that culture. We've also created and worked with BC Ambulance on processes that are allowing us to follow up on complaints by students about preceptors and complaints by preceptors about students. It's got to be fair. And so we have new processes in place that allow us to investigate. So I hope that helps, Amanda. If there are other questions, let me know, and I'll do my best to address them. Chris, is the program mostly instructor-led as opposed to online? It's a blended model. You're in the classroom an average of 3 days a week during the didactic component, and then the other 2 days, the rest of the week, you have online work to do, assignments and stuff. One of the things that we've cut from the program is some of the extensive online discussion groups. We had feedback from students that these were not high yield, and so we've cut quite a bit of that out of the program. What we want is, what we've done then is made the online, we hope, we haven't made a lot of changes other than cutting things, but are trying to make it more streamlined and useful to you so that it's what you have to do online serves your learning and not detracts from it. How many students at each campus? We can have up to 20 students at the New West campus, and I think we take 8. Thank you, Sue. Up to 8 at the regional campus in Victoria. Okay, so I saw a couple there. So one came earlier that said working on CAR as well as going to school. Working on CAR that's become a complicated process. If you are a full-time BC Ambulance employee, when you are actually in school, you are now required to take education leave. And so that means you can't work, or you shouldn't be working. Well, no, let me rephrase that. You're on education leave, and so you are able to work, but your work is limited, is my understanding. Generally, what we suggest is have a really good financial plan, work as little as possible so that you can focus on your studies. However, we understand that that's nigh impossible, right? What we do say is that practice education takes priority over work, and full-time employees who are on on education leave cannot be scheduled on practice. No, I said that backwards. My apologies. This happens to me. If you do not take education leave, you are considered to be available for work, and therefore you are not scheduled for practice education. So the challenge is if you don't take education leave, you won't complete the program because you'll never get through your practice education, because you're actually required to work if you don't take education leave. If you take education leave, then there are challenges about being able to work, when you can work, and those sorts of things, and that's all related to DCHS. So I suggest that you talk to your unit chief, your superintendent, to get the accurate information you need about education leave, and that may even mean talking to HR. Let's see, Amanda, you have several university level English courses, but not from the JI. And certainly if you have key English courses, we can do equivalency on some specific courses. And, and if you're in doubt, just email acp@jibc.ca. So that's acp@jibc.ca to find out, and we will be asking for course outlines, because what we need to see is that the objectives in those courses match the objectives that we're required to have you meet. If I understand this note, Sue, what it means is that if they look at the BC Transfer Guide under the Thompson Rivers University codes for the English courses, you can actually see if your course is equivalent. So, excuse me, I'm just going to take a sip of water. For the 4 prerequisite courses, if we haven't completed them all, if we haven't, do we send proof of the completed courses and proof of registration of the enrolled courses handed in with the application? Sue, what can you tell me about that?
Sorry, I lost the page. Sorry, the question was if for whatever has been completed,
if they
gets submitted?
If they haven't completed but are enrolled.
Yeah, just make note that they're enrolled and when the completion date is.
Okay.
And then once the course is finished, we do require a transcript.
Yeah. So what we need from that, Randy, is the courses that you haven't completed but are enrolled in. We need to send us the name of the course, where and what organization you're with, if it's TRU or JIBC or whatever, and then the date of completion, that expected completion. So because we need to have the exams completed and the documentation by, I think, by the time you've started June 30th of next year. So that's when we need it by. Right. Yes, definitely would recommend, Chris, pre-reading material to start the ACP program. I'm actually meeting with one of the instructors today to put a pre-reading list out on Facebook, but we will be sending a pre-reading list out fairly early. Not this early, but we will. We usually send the pre-reading list out a couple of months before class starts, but definitely we can email you the list. Yeah, the list for pre-reading for sure. But we really suggest that if you don't have the prerequisites, that you focus on the prerequisites, because those will really help you prepare. We'll send the email the current list out that is for the class coming in this coming September. So some things may change, but we can send that out to the email addresses you use to register. Other questions? All right, while somebody's typing, with the EMA Foundation Award, this comes out only once a year, and the deadline is June 30th, 2017. And you can find the link under the ACP program site on the JIBC website and under the section cost-tuition. And the grant is actually for $22,000. So please apply. It's free money, right? So yeah, definitely. So there was a question there about BCIT's intensive A&P course. Again, what I'd suggest is looking at the TRU codes and seeing if they align with the BCIT course. And that will give you a much better idea. And yes, it is 3 days a week in class, roughly. Sometimes it's 4 days a week, sometimes it's 2 days a week, but most of it is 3 days a week. We've been doing a better job of balancing that, but in the end, it's really related to the availability of the faculty members who are almost all of them are full-time paramedics. And then of our specialty instructors who come in or outside guests. Randy, I see your question there about applying for the grant. Apply by June 30th, this June 30th, but you must have paid the application fee, right? So that's the key, which you will have to do to meet the July 14th deadline, but I'd say apply before June 30th so that and pay that application fee so that you're eligible for the grant. All right. Now somebody had said something, let me scroll up here, about workload. It's a pretty tough workload. Now, is it PCP's pretty, I would say, assume to put your life on hold, but although it's a really tough workload, we've balanced it out a bit more than before. I just can't remember in PCP, and you can help me out here, if students were unable to complete all the reading. What we're finding in the current ACP program is students are actually able to do all of the reading before coming to class. We've been able to narrow it down as long as they stay on top of it. But it is an intensive course, there's no doubt about it. But it's not like being in the classroom 5 days a week. It's not quite as exhausting that way as PCP was when you're in the classroom 5 days a week. ECG Interpretation Courses. If you've already done your 4 prerequisites, then yes, an ECG interpretation course, of course, would definitely be useful. We'll cover that in class, but what we find is that it's really something that many students struggle with, and because it comes early in the program. But again, focus on those prerequisites, because if you don't have all 4 of them completed, then you run the risk of not being able to continue in the program. Any other questions? I'm just looking at my notes from Sue to make sure I've covered everything. The other great thing about being in ACP is that you get to work with Sue Nielsen, who's our program assistant, and she's amazing. And she really is the backbone of the program. Just ask any students who've been through the program before about Sue Nielsen, and they'll tell you. I've just embarrassed her, so that's the thing about truth, right? When will we find out who's selected into the program? When are we doing selection? We're this fall, right? I can't remember.
No, we're gonna probably have in August.
Ah, okay, I was wrong. So the comment about the fall, please ignore that. We're hoping to do the selection process in August so that we can actually offer seats before September. How much experience do you recommend? Well, you must have 1 year of PCP experience before applying to the program. It really depends on who you ask about how much experience do you recommend. Some say it's 3 years of high volume, high acuity. Some say 10 years. Others say a year. And it doesn't even have to be high volume. Part of it really depends on how you practice as a PCP. So call volume is great, like having a lot of call volume or a lot of years in so that you've seen a lot of patients. But it's really what learning have you done? How are you growing your practice? Are you working on self-reflection? What kind of development are you doing? And so it's really, what we're really finding is those students who are really working at developing their skills, even at a PCP level. How can I get better at my communication? Am I on top of the treatment guidelines? Do I know the guidelines inside and out? What's my decision making like? Do I have good decision making? Am I seeking feedback from my partner, from the ACPs on scene? Am I seeking feedback from the other PCPs that we've layered with to find out how I can better improve my practice? So those kinds of things. If you're working to improve your practice, then that is what will help you be successful. So the other thing is, how do you take feedback, right? How does feedback work for you? Do you get defensive with feedback? One of the things I'd suggest is going on, we'll introduce this in ACP, but to give you a head start, if you haven't watched the TED Talk by Sheila Heen, and that's H-E-E-N, on feedback, please watch it. She's part of a study that's been with the Harvard negotiation team since the 60s. She hasn't been involved since the 60s, but her and David Stone have done some great research on feedback. And watching her TED Talk will change your concepts about feedback. Let's see, OSCEs, will they still be a large component of the examination? Yes, OSCEs will be. However, we have changed the OSCEs as of this term in the program. We have moved to a more traditional medical OSCE that is will be demonstrating your skills of actually doing, say, a respiratory assessment. So it'll be more algorithmic. What we're trying to do here with those OSCEs is align with medical teaching and remove the oral component from the OSCEs. We've moved an oral component into the practical exams, and that's because we've, at this point, have removed the capstone. And so we've taken the oral questioning from the capstone project to the end of the oral exams. And therefore the OSCEs are really, they are what they actually stand for. And I can never, observed I can never remember what it stands for. So I hope that helps with that question. They're not the same as they used to be. Let me look here. Let's see. Percent of success rate in the ACP program EMALB exam. Well, the exam, the current copper exam, we have no stats on that at this point because it's only just been, oh, Sue might have stats on that. Okay.
Our students have been 100% successful.
Oh, in the copper exams.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sue has stats on that, sorry. Our students have been 100% successful since the copper exam was initiated. Thank you. Success rate in the ACP program. Again, the program's changed significantly, so I don't have accurate success rates for the way the program is running right now with the current 1701 course. Success rates in the past, do we have stats on that? No. I don't have stats at my fingertips, and right now I'd say those stats are no longer relevant. The knowledge-based exam is a PCP level exam. So it's to ensure that you're really up to date, up to standard on your PCP information. How tight are the requirements? 26 days short or a full year? At the time of application. It should be a full year, but certainly have the conversation with us. You can submit this to ACP at JIBC.ca, and we can have that conversation. Oh, time and questions. Do you have any?
90 questions?
90 questions, and then I would assume that you probably have about a minute per question. I'm just scrolling back to see if I've missed anything. Nope, I think we've covered everything there. Okay. Have I said everything? Okay. When can we take the PCP knowledge test? That happens once you've actually completed the application and been offered a seat, right? No.
Interview and online testing.
Right. So the online testing will happen right around the same time in August as the interviews. Do I know who the lead instructors will be in 1801? No, I don't know at this point. I'm hoping that we will have the same ones that we have this coming into 1701. No, we're in 1701. In 1701 and 1702, but I can't guarantee that. Yeah, I can't guarantee that. I would like to guarantee that because we've had some amazing lead instructors. We've had Jody Butterman for term 1, who is coming back to term 1 in this coming September. Brandon Adams is currently term 2. We had Andrew Mills, not my brother, but really could be, although I do have a brother named Andrew Mills, who did term 3 with 1601. Just some amazing lead instructors. It's been very exciting. Let's see, what else did I miss? Sue gave me, nope, is giving me another one. Oh, the duration of the increased ACP. Well, right now, let me scroll down to that. Well, that's actually a very good question. I don't know the answer to that question. How long do you expect the increased ACP demand to last for BC Ambulance? They're talking about hiring hundreds. Right now they are looking at, well, they've already advertised not only nationally, but internationally, and are trying to bring in applicants from all over the world to get ACP, to increase the ACP population. So even though they'll be bringing in people from outside, that's a timely process, especially for international applicants. Yeah, there has been no official amount. I know that Mr. Acker said that all of this year they're looking at hiring 8 ACPs a month for the rest of this fiscal year, and expect to hire 30 or more, if I can remember, in the next minimum in the next fiscal year. But that was, he had mentioned that now several weeks, well, a month and a half ago, and now it looks like they're looking at more numbers actually than that. So I don't know how long that will last, but when you're seeing a sea change in the model and a movement into rural medicine for ACPs, so it'll be a lot. I really can't tell you how many. I'm hoping that they're actually going to release a number. The other challenge that we're facing there, in terms of, not challenge, but the other good news for those wanting to become ACPs, is that so many ACPs are moving into the CCP role because they've really ramped up their CCP intake. And so I know that they want a lot more CCPs out there as well. So we're bringing ACPs in, but we lose them to the CCP program. One of the challenges we've been facing with our faculty is losing faculty availability to CCP and ITT, because both of those programs have ramped up their intakes. As you can tell, this is an exciting time. I don't have a lot of specific answers because DCHS, as far as I know, does not have answers, and we asked as recently as 2 weeks ago. They're waiting to, the Ministry of Health still has not quite formally released the 2025 vision, and so that's what they're waiting for, is the release of that vision. Then they will be able to give numbers. So besides Victoria and New West, will it be offered anywhere else? The offering following, so the 1901 offering, the offering starting in September 2019, will be offered in Kelowna again. So New West and Kelowna, and those are the 2 regions currently that we have support from AvEd, from the Ministry of Advanced Education, to provide regional delivery. Well, Alina, interesting point. One of the around, you'd love to apply for ACP in the somewhat near future, but don't want to wait too long. The other thing that is happening in BC is movement towards alignment with what's happening in Canada and what's already happened in Australia and England around paramedicine, and that's moving to a degreed program, which of course is going to take BC. We're currently working on that model right now at JIBC to develop a degreed program with PCP up through ACP. And really to develop a degree is going to take, I don't know, probably 5 years because there's so much work to do. And of course it requires funding through the ministries and that sort of thing. But there is really a strong plan in BCHS by 2025 to move to a degreed paramedic and ideally a degreed ACP paramedic by 2025. And so what you'll see out of that is a rise in PCP education as it moves to a diploma style level, so that the leap between PCP and ACP isn't as large academically. Is the interview a panel interview with other potential students at the same time? No, not currently. We're still doing them individually in ACP because we don't have the large number of students in terms of applicants. In PCP, you know, we put out about 250 graduates a year, but when we were doing selection process and interviews, we were interviewing between 330 and 400 applicants. And so we just don't have that volume in ACP, so we have the ability to interview individually. And so we're continuing to do that. Good question. All of these are great questions. You're keeping Sue and I busy here. I love this. Something for me? On what? Sorry, I don't understand the context.
The question about apply now.
Oh, yes. It was really about apply now or apply later. It was related to Alina's question, or sort of a struggle. If you apply right away, then that allows you to receive a seat offer early, like prior to September, right? And so that also allows you access to the funding. Deadline for June 30th for the EMA Foundation. And the foundation is still there, and I know it still has capacity to support ACP students. How long that money will last, I do not know. And that's something that DCHS, the foundation, the EMA Foundation, will need to determine how long it's going to be supporting PCP and ACP students this way. Any other questions? There are a couple people typing, so if you find that you have another question and we don't answer it here, or you think of another question based on our conversation here so far, just feel free to write acp@jibc.ca and we will get back to you. Might take us a couple of days, but we'll get back to you and answer your questions. So there's a question here about if you apply and get approved for the 2018 intake, but decide you'd like to defer enrollment until the following year, can you do that? That's a very good question. Sue's writing me a note. In our currently, yes, you can defer, but you lose your $500 deposit and you have to reapply to the program. So you have to do a new application and a new application fee. That was nice and clear, Sue. Thank you. Any other questions? We have about 5 minutes left in the time slot. So Heather, oh, you've got that answer. Okay, good, thanks. All right. If there are no other questions, oh, Chris has a question. Would you recommend taking the program prior to the program becoming a degree? That really depends on your goals, Chris. And what we're also looking at, so one, depends on your goals. What do you want to do with the program? Second is, we're going to be working on ways to allow students who have been through the program to PLAR into the degree. So what that means is prior learning experience. We're looking at a process to take in the ACP program that you took, plus your learning experience, other education, and apply that to the degree program. And so our hope is that we will be able to have previous graduates of the advanced Advanced Care Paramedic Advanced Diploma then also be able to obtain the degree. I don't know what that will look like at this point, but that's the route we want to take. In terms of goals, one of the things that DCHS is leaning towards is that moving towards that vision of 2025, they're really going to be requiring bachelor's degrees for all, for ACP, probably all ACPs that they're hiring, but also to move into other positions and to move up into the organization. And that's again trying to catch British Columbia up with what's happening in the UK and Australia. You know, in the UK now they have like clinical educators who have master's degrees in paramedic education and stuff. So that's where it's moving towards. So it depends on what your goals are. All right. Thank you, Amanda. We're out of time now. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here for this information session, and I look forward to really to seeing you in class. All right. Thank you so much. If you do have questions, send them to acp@jibc.ca, and we'll get back to you. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Look forward to seeing you. Bye-bye.